Hey there. Hello, how do you do? My name is Harry Wetzel. Thanks for coming. It's the 80s, darling. Yes, it is. It is November 30th, 1983. It is a Wednesday. It was a beautiful sunny day, and now it's dark at 6 p.m. sharp when I go up to my new job and open the door. As I open the door, All Night Long by Lionel Richie is playing on the radio. And as I open the door, I see there's a 277-year-old lady making her way towards the door carrying a bottle of Tokay. I stand there and hold the door waiting for her. I say, "Right this way, dear." And she says, "Oh," and she's making her way slowly towards the door. And right behind her is Stuart. And he's obviously in a bit of a hurry, and he's trying not to hustle the lady. He doesn't want to nudge her out of the way, but you can see he'd sort of like to because he's in sort of a hurry. She takes her time as best as she can, gets to the door, and I say, "Thanks for coming. See you next time." She says, "You have a nice evening," and off she goes. And then Stuart dashes up to the door, and I say, "Hiya, boss." And he says, "Bye." And shoom, poof, he's gone. I say, "Bye, boss." Francine inside behind the counter says, "Bye." So I go on in there, and she says, "Well, he's gone." And I said, "Yes, that's true. He's gone." She says, "No, I mean for good. He left the store and he won't be back." And I'm like, "What?" She said, "Yes. Stuart sold the store to Steve. And Stuart is moving to Connecticut. And now Steve, the Mr. Question Man from last night, the nerd, he's the new boss. He said he was going to be here earlier than this." And I'm like, "Nobody ever tells me anything." She says, "That's the first time I ever had my boss quit my job." So we look at each other and he blusters in. Steve, the new boss. He's got his trench coat and his briefcase, and he rushes right back to the office, gets rid of his trench coat and his briefcase, and he comes back and he says, "Listen, you guys, I'm starving. Would you like to eat Hungarian tonight? It's on me. I'm buying. Listen, the Mocha restaurant right across the street is fantastic. I've had the Viener Schnitzel. That's what I'm ordering again tonight. I'll tell you what, Francine, why don't you call him up over there and order 3 Wiener Schnitzel dinners with everything? I'm buying. It's on me. Maybe we could have a nice white dry Hungarian wine with that, wouldn't you say?" And I say, "The Wiener Schnitzel?" And he says, "Hey, Harry, what are these boxes? What are these cases over here? Look, there's a sign that says Dr. Spurlock, 5th Avenue and 82nd Street. What are they doing sitting here? Get a move on. Chop, chop." And I say, "Oh, I just got here. Okay, right. And I get the hand cart and I load up the 2 boxes of one red box of case of white wine, 1 case of red wine, and then a case of mixed liquors. 3 boxes stacked on top of each other. It's a little bit precarious, a little bit like a balancing act, but I will be able to negotiate the streets with this. It'll be fine." So I say, "All right, back in a flash," and off I go. And over the uneven terrain, the bumpy sidewalks, the cracks in the streets, the potholes, the puddles. You got to watch out for those puddles. You don't know what's in them or how deep they are. There's pedestrians. There's pedestrians with pets. And there's more pedestrians pretending that they're not paying attention, only I don't think they're pretending. And then, of course, there's the automobiles. It's sort of a life-risking adventure just taking a few cases of wine a few blocks over. And I get over to 5th Avenue and 82nd Street, and I'm standing in front of the rather large domicile of Dr. Spurlock. And I'm like, wait a minute. Dr. Spurlock, isn't that the name of the villain in the movie Curse of the Demon? Anyhow, there's an angry sign over there that says, "Deliveries are outside." And so I go over to the side, and there's an angry sign there that says deliveries. And so I push the button. And you hear there's a big bell inside. You can hear it. Then you wait a little bit. And after a while, you push the button again. And you're going, aren't they expecting a case? Aren't they expecting a delivery? And you push the button again. It's working. I can hear it ringing. And then you hear clomp, 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 clomp. Ah, you hear somebody coming up. And then a stern woman opens the door. She's wearing a British maid's outfit. She says, yes. And I say, delivery from Viener Veritas. She says, come on in. Did I interrupt her from watching her favorite TV program or something like that? So I take the hand cart and roll it over the threshold of the door, and it's in the house now. She says, they go down there, downstairs. And I'm like, great, down a flight of stairs with the balancing act filled with wine, glass, and liquid. And so you bump, 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 bump down the steps. It's very precarious, but you eventually get down there. She says, over there. So I take the case of liquor, and you put it on the floor, and then you take the case of red wine and the case of white wine. You stack them nicely to that. It looks nice. You say, all right. She says, come on up. And so I go on upstairs. She opens the side door, and I take my cart and take it outside. She says, here's the check. And I take the check. I look at it. It's exactly for the price of the liquor. And that's it. And I say, no tip for the delivery person? She says, that's all there is. That's all they gave me. And I say, oh, well, the thing is, and she says, thank you, and shuts the door, clunk, right in my face. Now, I'm relatively new at this delivery business. But I have never been completely stiffed like that on any delivery yet, let alone a delivery that I had to come several blocks, do a balancing act, and 3 cases of booze. It's the rich who stiff you on tips. Did you ever notice? Yes, that drunken 8-top back at O'Neill's that stiffed me on the tip. They were rich. I make a mental note that I sort of hate this Dr. Spurlock and possibly even his nefarious maid. How do I know that the doctor didn't give the maid a $5 bill to give to the delivery person, and she's sitting in there with her feet up, eating snacks, watching her television program, and laughing at me? Huh? Anyhow. So by the time I get back to Viener Veritas, it's time to go pick up the Viener Schnitzel at the Mocha restaurant. It's right across the street from Viener Veritas. It's directly, you can see it straight out the window. So I run right across the street. Have you ever been to the Mocha restaurant? Mocca, it's just fantastic. It's like walking into Budapest in 1947. It's so beautiful. There's lace curtains and lace tablecloths, very elegantly dressed wait staff, and a maitre d' in a tuxedo, and 3 styrofoam packages over by the cash register of our Wiener Schnitzel dinners. Yes. So I pay for that. I leave I let them keep the change. It's a couple of bucks because, and so then I run back across the street with our 3 dinners, and I dole out our 1, 2, 3 dinners. And Steve says, you got my receipt? And I pull it out of my pocket. I give it to him. He says, did you leave a tip? I says, yeah, I let him keep the change from, so it was a couple of bucks. He said, next time, make sure to leave at least $5. And I'm like, oh, well, good for you. And Stuart was saying you were a cheapskate. All right. Now, it's the next day. It's December. It's December the 1st, 1983. A new month and new people. Yes, I go into the store, and the song Safety Dance is playing by Men Without Hats as I walk in there. And as I go in, Francine is talking to this energetic, wiry-looking black fellow with great big glasses and a little mustache and a corduroy jacket. She introduces him to me, and it's Gregory, the new manager for Vino Veritas. We shake hands, and he doesn't meet my eyes. Oh well. So Francine says, "There's already a delivery for you. It's over to Quesos." And I'm like, all right. So there's a Quesos over on 85th Street on the second floor, and that is two magnums of red wine. So I take that on over. She gives me the change. I say, back in a flash. Off I go, and I go on up to 85th, up to the second floor. They buzz me in. I go in, and now I'm waiting just inside the foyer of their apartment. Mr. Quesos answered the door, and this is Mrs. Quesos down at the end of the hall. She says, "I'll go get the money." And so she takes off, and I'm standing there with Mr. Quesos, and I'm looking at the walls in their apartment. Every wall, every square inch of every wall is covered from floor to ceiling, literally, with framed paintings. All obvious originals, obviously some fine art, some of this stuff. He says, we've been here for many years. We painted many of these ourselves, and many of them are from our friends who are also excellent painters, as you can see. And I look, and there's even a couple of paintings mounted on the ceiling. How did they do that? It's fantastic. It's beautiful, I say. She says, "Thank you." And then Mrs. Quesos comes around with the money. She gives it to me. I go to make change. They say, "No, keep the change." They left me a nice tip, about $3 or something like that. So I say, "Thank you very much," and off I go. I'm back to the shop in no time at all. And Gregory is talking to Francine and a lady, a little old white lady in a flowery coat. She's got her Coke bottle glasses, and she's holding a bottle of wine already wrapped and already paid for, and it's in a bag, and she's holding it. And Gregory is talking to them about wines or something like that. And I say, all right. There's that. And I look back in the shop, and there's another person, another new person in the shop. And he's dusting the bottles. And I'm going, well, that's not some random stranger. He obviously works here. Some random stranger wouldn't be dusting the bottles. And I go back there, and it's this big lug of a guy. And he's got his Yankees baseball cap on and his New York Mets jacket on. And we shake hands. And he doesn't meet my eyes. And he's a great big lug of a guy with a mustache, and he's got a bit of a stammer. Yes. So his name is Michael, and he's an old friend of Steve's from the olden days, and he seems to be an absolutely friendly fellow. So we walk up to the front of the store, and Gregory is still going on and on and on about wine, or this very bottle of wine, to Francine and the little old lady in the flowery coat. He says, the Merlot grape is an excellent grape. It's grown usually on the hills of the Côte de Saint Margot. You know what I mean? And the little old lady says, no, I don't. Actually, I don't. He says, this is an excellent wine. What are you having for dinner? What are you going to enjoy this excellent bottle of wine with? She says, well, we were going to have a roast. He says, a roast? That's an excellent choice to have with this wine. As a matter of fact, a roast is the sort of thing that if you were to buy another bottle of this same wine, you could actually cook the roast in the wine. The ambiance of the wine would add a certain je ne sais quoi to the whole meal. You know what I mean? And she says, no, actually, I don't. He says, perhaps you would like another bottle of this wine so that you can cook your roast in it. She says, you're very helpful, but please stop. And he says, well, I'm glad you think I'm helpful. She says, yes, I've been to this store many times, coming here for years, and this is the first time I've ever had someone try to sell me a bottle that I've already bought. She says, you're very helpful, and so politely she says it. She says, but please don't say another word. I've got to go. So to all, I bid you a good night. And she turned and strode out of the booth store, and the door slowly shut. There's a moment of quiet while we're all looking at each other and looking at Gregory, and then Francine and Michael just burst out laughing at Gregory. And Francine says, "Don't say another word. I like that lady." And suddenly in blusters in a regular customer, an unruly alcoholic dressed like a shabby longshoreman with a red knit watch cap on. And he bumbles up to the counter and he says, "Half pint Cossack." He was ordering a half pint of Cossack vodka, which is $2.15 for a little half pint bottle. He had his $2 and he had his nickel and he had his dime. He laid it on the counter and pushed it towards Francine. She got a little bottle and put it in a paper bag. She put it on the counter. He scoops it up and put it in his pocket. Francine takes the money, and then Redcap says, "Where's my change?" Like it's a hilarious joke. He thinks it's funny. She says, "Change? I'll give you a change. I'll break your arm. Go along home." And he says, "I was just asking, asum gnazum guzum nuzzum bosum." And she says, "What? Get out of here." He says, and he snickers like he thinks he's a clever little darling, and he walks over to the door, bumbles over to the door, opens up the door slowly, and he turns back and announces to the room, "Nyadla Huadla Swigget Gates." And out he goes, and the door shuts. Gregory looks at Francine and says, "Francine, you shouldn't talk to customers that way." She says, "What? That drunk doesn't even speak English." And Michael says, "Don't say another word." Everybody laughs. He says, "Listen, I just want to, as manager of this store, I'm just trying to show you how to pump up the sale, and you shouldn't be disrespectful to customers." She says, "Pump up the sale?" And he says, "Yes, and you shouldn't be disrespectful to customers. And I want to instill a certain amount of respect in you guys for me in here as the manager of the store." And Michael says, "Do you want to instill another bottle of that wine too?" And Francine says, "Manager? Ha!" He says, "Well, what else would I be? Delivery boy? That's Harry's job." And I said, "Delivery person." He said, "Straighten up the wine racks and dust the bottles. That's Michael's job." The phone rang and Francine got it. He said, "Answer the phone. That's Francine's job." And she answers the phone. She says, "Yes, hello. Yes, yes, yes. He'll be right up. All right now. Bye for now." And she hung up the phone. She says, "Harry, that was Mr. Carreras. He's a regular. He orders 2 bottles of Johnny Walker Black every week, and he's going to give you a $20 bill and ask for $1 back. That'll give you a tip of about $2.50. It's not a bad tip. He's right over here on 85th Street on the second floor. Here's his address. Yeah, make sure to get him his receipt because his wife is a mental patient and he uses all the receipts as a medical write-off." And I say, "Whoa, Francine." I say, "Whoa, Gregory. Looks like knowing all the shit that's going on down. That's Francine's job." And he says, "Kicking you guys' asses is my next job. You don't get back to work." And I say, "All right." I take the bottles of Johnny Black, and I say, "Back in a flash," and off I go. I'm over to the Carreras house before you know it. And Francine was exactly right. I got about $2 in change for a tip, and as I was waiting, as I was handing him the bottle, I looked in there in the apartment, and they have these beautiful stone carvings that look like they were in Atlantis or something like that. Yes. Well, I get back to the liquor store in just a few minutes, and they're all still laughing at Gregory, who stands there scowling like Beethoven. All right, now, you know what happens next? Well, you're going to have to wait until the next episode. Thank you for coming along. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for spending time with me. And please subscribe and share this out to all your friends. All right. I look forward, so forward to seeing you next time.